Welcome to Backstage Pass with Gail Davis, your invitation into the world of keynote speaking and event planning expertise. Join us as we pull back the curtain and dive into exclusive interviews with speaking industry experts. From seasoned speakers to master event planners, we're here to provide you with the ultimate backstage experience. Get ready to unlock valuable insights, tips, and strategies that will elevate your events and leave your audience inspired. Hello, welcome to Backstage Pass. My name is Gail Davis, and I am your host. I am so looking forward to our conversation today with Rachel Wilson. She is one of my favorite speakers because she merges together this incredible experience and content with great presentation style. And so I'm really eager to share all that she is with you today. She is a cybersecurity expert and a former senior executive with the National Security Agency. During her 15 years with the NSA, she led counterterrorism operations and oversaw thousands of high-stakes cyber operations against global enemies. Today, she is the managing director at Morgan Stanley and helps organizations build practical strategies to protect their data, their systems, and their people. And as I said in the beginning, it's this credibility and the fact that she works full-time in this industry, and she's also a great speaker that I really love. Welcome, Rachel. I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, Gail, I am thrilled to be here, and thank you so much for the kind words. I'm blushing. You are too kind.
We have booked you here at GDA Speakers 22 times since 2019. And this weekend, I was looking over the comments from various clients, and it struck me how many times people said, "You're so easy to work with." There was one line that came in that I thought, "Oh my gosh, I've got to repeat this to her and find out more about it." So here's the exact quote from the client. Rachel was engaging and drew our audiences in with stories and wit, but also she portrayed an air of seriousness. She provided simple and tangible takeaways for business owners and individuals to protect their cyber assets. Participants appreciated her style. They were able to focus on her delivery without the distraction of a slide deck. And I wanted to start there because that's so unusual in our world today. People got to get there in advance and they've got to load all these slides and they've got to have their clicker. You don't do that. Talk to me a little bit about the thought process that went into that decision.
Well, Gail, I will tell you, and you remember my early days. You and I have come a long way together on this journey since 2019. But I found a couple of things, as we started doing this together. One is that slides all too often, they can become a crutch, they can become a distraction. Something AV-wise goes wrong, and the next thing you know, you're just kind of tossing the clicker and you're going for it. And what I realized, I think, pretty quickly is that my style, which is very story-based, very conversational, my whole goal is I want the audience, we're going to laugh, we're going to cry, we're going to sing, we're going to dance, we're going to be all over this together. And that works much, much better when we're not pointing at things and noises going off. Like, we just make this one-on-one. And Gail, you remember, we had some clients who were like, wait a minute, so she's going to spend an hour and she's just going to talk like to us for an hour. And there were definitely some clients who were spooked by that. But you and I got this to a very refined state where, whether the client wants 30 minutes, an hour and a half, whether they want Q&A or not, we make this super engaging without any external materials, which means, of course, we can take this anywhere with any audience, any venue, any forum. We show up and we wow them.
I love it. I remember, I think it had to be 2024. I was the learning chair for EO Dallas, and I brought you in to speak to my group. And I planned it so far in advance that I didn't realize that it was going to be election results. Not only election results, but like presidential election results. So
That was a crazy day.
Yeah, I was so worried, like, oh no, what am I going to do? So you were so flexible, and we modified and we did the presentation prior to dinner. I was thinking people would be busting out of there to go home to see what was going on. But I'll never forget, we had to practically close the place down. And it's that engagement. I mean, people had so many questions, and you were so gracious with your time and willing to stay there and visit with them.
Well, I mean, you know me, Gail. I mean, for me, what we do together, it's not a job, it's not a career, it is a calling. Like, this is what I think I was put on the planet to do. And so, proselytizing, spreading the good word on cybersecurity, that's what we do together.
Perfect. Okay. So P.S. Up to this point, we've just talked about what an amazing person she is on stage. But now I want to dive into this content so people understand why they want you on the stage. You're known for your work in cybersecurity at the highest level, and your career has really evolved a lot. How have your perspectives on cyber security started to shift beyond it just being a technical issue?
Well, I mean, Gail, you're spot on. Because if you had met, Rachel 20 years ago, when I was deep in the trenches of cybersecurity, like coding up my own problems and running pen tests and troubleshooting on the fly, I viewed cybersecurity as a job that was, and it was for me, super technical in nature. And I've worked really hard to retain my technical chops over the years. But exactly to your point, Gail, cybersecurity today is everyone's problem. So whether you are the CEO of your own company, running your own show with your own cybersecurity risks, whether you're the general counsel of a company, the chief financial officer, maybe you're a manager trying to lead a team that has a cybersecurity component. And now my view is that whether you are a brand new graduate out of college all the way through to a retiree who's maybe working as a volunteer in a nonprofit, maybe you're involved in your house of worship, my argument to our audiences today is that all of us are wearing many different hats, our business hats, our hats as citizens in our communities, and that in all of those hats we're wearing, we have significant cyber risk. And so, really, this is everyone's problem now. I mean, Gail, can you think of a person in your life who hasn't had a scam go after them, who's clicked on a link, downloaded an attachment? You suddenly have that oops moment where you say, I'm not sure what to do now, but I'm not feeling so good. And my goodness, Gail, with artificial intelligence now proliferating to the degree that it has been, if my worry meter was an 8 out of 10 3 years ago, in 2026, I'm at a 12 out of 10. Like, I am not sleeping, and I don't think any of us should be sleeping given the world we're living in right now.
If you were to take us behind the scenes with all that you know about cyber threats, what would surprise leaders the most?
So I think they would be surprised to learn, Gail, that most of my day to day activities as the leader of cybersecurity for a large bank are not particularly sexy, right? Like, we are doing a lot of meat and potatoes, hygiene work. We're managing vendor relationships. We're managing a workforce. That a lot of this now, we're not sitting here with hoodies crouched under over our computers typing frantically, right? That these are big programmatic risk management issues now. And then the other thing I would add that I think is a surprise to leaders is that it's really our collective workforces that are my biggest risk. I mean, you've heard me, Gail, and we do a world tour, right? We talk about North Korea and we talk about Russia and China, Iran. Now, of course, we're talking about nonstop because the Iranians, holy cow, for the last 9 weeks, Gail, it has been a full frontal assault from the Iranians. Now, all of that is problematic, and our audiences need to hear that. But what I think leaders sometimes miss is that it is their workforce that is both their first line of defense and their greatest point of risk. That employee training, that employee awareness can go such a long way. I mean, you look at the big hacks over the last few years. from Vegas to Anthem Health to the things we've seen in government, now all the crypto hacks, the common denominator is the employee sitting in the call center working on something who maybe picks up the phone, does something relatively innocuous that sets off an entire kill chain and results in a major cyber breach. And in a lot of cases, Gail, in a significant financial loss. The human factor cannot be ignored.
So if we were, I'm a small business and then you speak to large companies, but if I was, we have a team meeting today at noon. If I wanted to convey one important message to my front line of defense, which are all the employees here at GDA Speakers, what would that message be?
I want you, Gail, to talk to them about the proliferation of artificial intelligence and what it means for all of us, as business owners, as employees, and as people. So the example I would give you, Gail, if you were to ask the question, what's changed, right? What's different? What do your employees need to know? It's that artificial intelligence, well, I'm sure it's making us more efficient, more effective. We all love talking to ChatGPT and Claude all day now. Hackers are leveraging AI for their own effectiveness and efficiency. So essentially, AI has lowered the barrier to entry to being a quite sophisticated hacker. If you wanted to be a hacker 5 years ago, you needed an advanced degree in a technical field, you needed a nation state toolkit, you needed training, you needed covert infrastructure. What do you need to be a hacker today? Well, a little bit of ChatGPT, some Claude, maybe sprinkle on some Gemini, watch some YouTube videos, and you're off to the races as a quite competent hacker in a matter of weeks. So lowering the barrier to entry. Next, AI has increased the scope, the scale, the velocity of the cyber attacks we're seeing to a level, Gail, that I could not have imagined even just 2 years ago, coming at us full throttle in ways that are more sophisticated than ever. And then lastly, I would have you emphasize to them that the cost of conducting a cyber attack is now de minimis. So we had an attack last week, Gail, in my day job, where we were being inundated with a whole bunch of attacks. My board said, well, Rachel, how can they afford to do this? We estimated, Gail, that the entire attack sequence cost the hackers about $5. So that is what you are up against now. Lower barrier to the entry, greater scope, scale, and velocity at virtually de minimis costs.
So knowing that, should you have a certain distrust with just when I know the other day I got something, I was like, this doesn't look right. And I didn't open it. And I sent it to the person and said, did you send this? And of course, her immediate response was, no, I've been hacked. So it's just knowing those things. And then how you respond to it is just a little bit of suspect. Not a little bit of suspect.
Absolutely, Gail. So I think everyone in this world of artificial intelligence needs to bring a healthy dose of skepticism to basically every interaction they have. So when you pick up the phone, and Gail, that I don't want people answering the phone, right? If you don't know who's calling you, I don't want you to answer. You pick up the phone, you become convinced that your IT provider is calling you, that this is someone who was trying to offer you that it's the IRS, that it's the police department. All of this now can be spoofed. All of this can be faked. And what the hackers are doing is mining the social media and the online presence of companies, of individuals, of institutions, and they're leveraging everything they can find to create the most sophisticated scams and cons that you've ever seen. And I am seeing really smart, sophisticated individuals around the country and around the world who are falling for things where if they had just taken a breath, take a breath. If your spidey sense is tingling, press pause, give that person a call, ask them if they really sent that message. Don't ever send money based on some cold outreach. It's just there's too many ways for that to go wrong.
I love don't answer the phone. I have implemented that new feature with the latest Apple phone update where, they have to qualify themselves. My phone calls have dropped dramatically. Thank goodness, right? So I
Yeah.
love that. Don't answer the phone. Okay. Um, what is something that you do different in your personal life based on all that you're exposed to in your day job?
So, Gail, this is not, and I thought about this a lot. My answer to your question here is not a technology based answer. I think this all really comes down to social relationships. So I spent last week with a whole bunch of families who have all been victims of various form of scam or cyber attack. And the number one thing I told them that we do in my family religiously is we have a safe word as a family. We have secret questions. But so the other day, and I'll give you a real example, Gail, my personal phone ran out of battery and I needed to reach out to my family. So I texted them on my work phone. This was a number they had never seen before. And I reached out and I said, guys, it's Rachel, but not on the number you're expecting. Gail, my whole family freaked out. They're like, oh no, Rachel's been hacked. Who could this be? But my dad very quickly asked the question, Rachel, what's the family safe word? I responded. I gave context on that. The rest of the conversation, we're comfortable. These little things of just, hey, if I ever ask for money, ask me for the family safe word. If I am telling my kids that someone else is going to pick them up from school, what's that safe question that we use to ask each other? This is no different from when we were latchkey kids back in the 80s and 90s, but now we need to be exercising that same human connection as a means of defeating these hackers.
Oh, that's a great tip. That's really good. Um, when you look at your speaking calendar, what types of organizations are bringing you in, and for what types of events? Is it management conferences, more focused on leadership? What are you seeing? Is there a trend or is it all over the place?
Well, Gail, it's been interesting, and you know this, how many, repeat offender clients we've had where,
Yeah.
they brought me in for maybe a board meeting or for a leadership conversation. So for example, Gail, a lot of boards now have a requirement for cyber training. They have to every year bring in an outside speaker to help bring them up to speed on all of the latest developments. We'll talk to the board and the board will say, well, I want my whole leadership team to hear this. And then the leadership team will say, well, why don't we have the whole workforce hear this? And then just last week, when we presented to a workforce, the workforce said, well, my customers need to hear this. So we ended up with a whole sequence of events, all, booked with the same client, but with a varying array of audiences, and we tailored, as you know, the
Yeah.
content to be very specific to those audience. So what we would say to a board of directors, right, that is thinking from a governance and risk and audit perspective, compared to what we would say to a bunch of customers, maybe of a product in terms of how they should be thinking about this, that gamut has been very interesting. I've got a lot of things coming up where we are talking to universities, we are talking to nonprofits, we are talking to houses of worship. I mean, the volume of cyber threats. Gail, it's terrible. I'm working a case this week where a church in Tennessee was ransomware attacked, and the hackers not only stole all of the congregant data, all of the employee data associated with the church, they actually defaced the website of the church with hate speech. So now we're in a full court press to try to address this. But what I'm really finding is that every audience, whether it's younger people trying to think about what they need to be considering, all the way through to, we've done events at assisted living facilities, retirement communities, investment clubs love us when we do this. People want to know where the technology is going. And what I would tell you I'm most proud of, Gail, and you've seen this, right? We've done everything from the most non-technical, older, retired type group, all the way through to deep technologists. So if we're talking a cyber conference, a technology conference, it's the point you made at the opening. I mean, this is my day job, right? Like I love my job because I actually do this for a living. I don't just talk about it. And so whether people want to talk about the latest Claude Mythos model, which of course is all over the minds of IT professionals right now, to considerations of what leadership and even kids need to be thinking, we can scratch all of those itches.
You know, you mentioned what happened at the house of worship that you're currently working with. I find that personally, it seems not a month goes by that I don't get some form letter that says, hey, we regret to inform you, we've had a security breach, but from what we can tell, nothing's really happened, but we just want to make you aware. I tend to read those and put them in the trash can. Is there something I should be doing when I get a note like that?
So, Gail, I'm so glad you asked. On the one hand, I think you're doing the right thing on putting them in the trash, but it's because I want you to be working with the assumption every day of your life that your data is already exposed. And so simply having that fact confirmed should not change anything about your behavior. We've talked about this, Gail. You know that I want your credit frozen at all three credit bureaus, that I want you monitoring all of your existing lines of credit. I want you then to be monitoring the credit of kids, any minor children. They all need to be monitoring their social security numbers. We've seen so many instances lately of the identities of children being stolen, used to commit insurance fraud, credit fraud. We had a client the other day, Gail. They actually stole the social security number of the 16-year-old daughter. The girl went off to college, applied for her first credit card, only to discover that she already had a mortgage in her name. It's getting more and more sophisticated. So exactly what you're saying, Gail, we need to be having these conversations early and often. And I think our goal is to take them from like the stratospheric geopolitical, what's going on in the world, all the way down to what do you need to be doing and talking about at the dinner table tonight to think about how you better protect your family.
I love this. I love it. So my key takeaways are: have a healthy dose of skepticism. Do not answer the phone. Freeze your credit. Have a safe word, and just keep this conversation top of mind.
Absolutely.
And in order to do that, might I suggest, if you're listening, please call GDA Speakers if you want a thought-provoking, high-energy, content-based, full of credibility presentation for your team. We love working with Rachel. She's just so easy to work with, and she takes this so seriously. So please call us if you'd like to bring her in. And Rachel, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Gail. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on Backstage Pass with Gail Davis. Tune in for more exclusive interviews and pro tips to elevate your events. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts with us. We'll catch you next time behind the curtain on Backstage Pass.